Hey friends, Glenn here. How you going? So good to be hanging out with you guys again today. All right, so trying out a new setup. Let me know what you think, whether I should go back to the grand piano and do what I was doing, or kind of put some more effort into what's going on here with the Chordy app and see if I can make it look even better and have better tutorials for you. Anyway, so hey, by the way, I don't get any cash through YouTube. You know, they haven't monetized me yet because I haven't got enough hours up. So, you know, if you ever want to shout me a cup of coffee or something like that, you can. I'll leave a PayPal description label or something. I don't know what you call it. You know, my PayPal account in the description below, and you can give me a cup of coffee if you feel like it. Anyway, let's get into it and enjoy this tutorial and get better as jazz piano players. All right, so we're looking at the drop 2 voicing today and the axis of a third voicing, which also could be thought of as a drop 2 of a second inversion as well. All right, so what is drop 2? Okay, this C major 7 here in root position. Drop 2 is where we drop the second highest note. And that's our new voicing, right? So that's a drop 2 voicing of a root position chord, right? So if I was playing D minus 7 in root position and drop the A, that's a D minus 7 drop 2, you know, of a root position. Now you can do that with different inversions. All right, there's some really interesting kind of inversions that can happen when we drop that B there. That sounds really interesting. We've got 2 perfect fourths there. That's a perfect fourth. And the G and C is a perfect fourth. You've got a minor third in the middle, so it's got an interesting kind of sound to it, right? Here's another inversion. We drop the C, and this is what I call an axis of a third. This is what I learnt it as, right? So I'm seeing that as not an inversion where the C is dropped. I'm just seeing this particular chord as 1, 5, 7, 3. And I mix that up a lot with, so 1, 5, 7, 3, right? Oops, there it is there, 1, 5, 7, 3. I mix that up with 1, 5, 3, 7. Okay, it's a bit high, let's bring it down here. All right, so, and I see them as 2-hand voicings, and I go around the cycle of fourths with those. You know, here's the axis of a 7th, going to an axis of a 3rd, going to an axis of a 7th, then the 3rd, and kind of going around like that, right? If that kind of makes sense to you, right? So that's one of the first voicings that I learned. So I think of them probably more often, some of those first voicings that I learnt because I learnt them early, been playing them for longer, right? So, but the drop 2, it's really useful and really funky. The drop 2 is super funky when you kind of utilize the Barry Harris diminished sixth intervals chords, right? So here's the diminished sixth scale, and what you do is you can build chords on that, particularly the 1, 3, 5 and the 6, right? So I'm literally like, I'm just skipping a note each time, right? I've skipped the D, I've skipped the F, and I'm skipping the A flat, right? Because that's what Barry Harris does now. I've got a whole tutorial. Actually, I've got a whole 10 series, a video series of 10 different videos on Barry Harris. So check those out if you're interested. But have a listen, right? That's kind of, you know, sounds all right. But once you turn that into, well, I'll bring it down here, right? But once you put the drop 2 into it, it sounds really, really funky, all right? So here was that. I'm going to bring the drop 2, I'll bring down that G, okay? So I'm going to bring down the G. And so you end up with this kind of sound. How cool does that sound? All right, now that's starting to sound a little bit more like a more modern sound, a bit more snarky puppy kind of, you know, type of sound, you know, like that's the kind of modern sound that a lot of you guys are after, but you know, anyway, leave it with you on that. So let's get into going around the cycle of fourths and how you can mix the drop 2 of the root position and then the drop 2 of the second inversion, or the axis of a third, if you want to think of it like that. I guess in some ways, I mean, who cares what the voicings are called, right? I mean, you're a listener, you're playing away, you're playing something cool. They don't care what it what voicings you're playing, right? They just want to know what sounds cool, all right? So anyway, let's have a look at that. So we're going to the drop 2, we're going to bring down that G. Okay, now I'm going to go around the cycle of fourths here, and I'll go all the way around so you can copy me and practice, and come back to this video and practice it again until you've really got it under your fingers. Okay, so here's C major 7, drop 2, it's root position, right? And I'm thinking of that as an axis of a third. Okay, now I'm going to go to the B flat, major 7, drop 2, E flat major 7, axis of the third, right? We're going to keep going around. There's A flat. Okay, that's drop 2, A flat, right? Then we're going to D flat, axis of a third. All right, so we're going to go to G flat with the drop 2. All right. B, major 7, E major 7. Now the chords shouldn't be A flat and E flat here, they should be G sharp and D sharp, but just ignore, that. The computer doesn't know what's meant to be. I use A chord, so that should be G sharp and C sharp. All right, we're almost, that should be a C sharp on top, the F sharp's correct. All right, G major 7 in the axis of a third voicing. Or again, second inversion, drop 2. And then there's root position, drop 2. I guess, you could even think of it in a slightly different way, right? There's the axis of a third, right? There's the axis of a seventh. Now, if you invert the bass notes there, you end up with the drop 2 as well. So of that. So see what I mean by there's so many different ways to kind of approach it, to think about it. And what I like to do is share as many approaches that I know of and just humbly present them to you, and hopefully there's something that sticks for you so that you can sound good, right? So the same thing when we're thinking about modes and we want to go, okay, do we want to think of the mode as, the Dorian mode, right? So do we want to think of it as a flattened third and a flattened seventh, right? Or do we want to think of it as the second mode of the major scale, before? So it's all about do I think about it as the relative major to the Dorian, or do I think of it as from the parallel major to the Dorian, and how do I approach that? So, but if you know a couple of ways of approaching things, then it really will help you to kind of understand what is going on. All right, so now once you've done it, practiced it like that, I would practice starting off with the axis of a third voicing with the C chord, and then go to the drop 2 of the first inversion of the F, right? So there's the drop 2, axis of the third, drop 2, axis of a third, drop 2 of the D flat. Oops, there it is there. All right, axis of a third of the G flat or the F sharp, whichever way you want to think of it. I'm thinking of it as a G flat chord there. Drop 2, axis of a third of the E chord. Again, that should be D sharp and G sharp there. What are we up to? There we go. That's the drop 2, axis of a third, drop 2, axis of a third. Now that's going to really help you when you're playing your 2-5-1s, when you're going around this. This is just axis of a third and axis of a third, another axis of a third, right? But then you're going here, all right? Drop 2, here's axis of a third, right? Going to the G chord, but drop 2. Axis of a third. Okay, so you could have gone down, do that instead, but we went with that voicing there. All right, so many different ways to think about, so many different ways to approach it, but hopefully that is helpful for you. You might want to go through all the inversions and do drop 2s of that, So here's drop 2 of the first root position, you know, do the drop 2 to bring down that B, etc. You might want to do that and muck around with that and see what you like and see what you don't like. All right, guys, I'll see you real soon. Catch ya.